Good. I was going to say morning. You know what? It's a muso morning. 1:30 in the afternoon. That's muso morning to me.
That's a fair one.
It is a fair morning. I hear voices. Ding dong. Who's at my door? None other than James Norbert Ivanyi. How you doing, James?
I'm good, brother. Good to be here.
Thank you for coming on, mate. Thank you for coming on. I've been a fan of your playing for a little while now. And in fact, I took a lesson with you online. That's probably about 2 years ago now.
Yeah, it would have been about 2 years ago.
Yeah, and I actually got quite a bit out of it, man. I was very impressed with your speed and dexterity that I saw on a clip that the guys over at Friedman have played of you, and I was just like, holy hell, how was that? Just jumping from octave to octave all over the fretboard. And then I saw that you were from Sydney, and I thought, holy hell, I've got to get in touch with this guy. And as luck would have it, you were doing online Skype lessons, as you still do. So I jumped on, and I got to say, man, I learnt out of one lesson, I still do the practice routine most mornings.
I'm glad to hear that, dude.
Yeah. So how's things with you, mate? You been busy?
Yeah, really busy. This year has been interesting for, obvious reasons. But just been really busy, obviously doing the teaching thing, doing a lot of production. Like I produce records for people a lot via Skype or, whatever. So I've been busy doing that. Recently finished up my new record only just kind of earlier this year. So now I'm mainly focused at just having to learn how to play all of that nonsense. And so that's been keeping me very busy.
Yeah, right. It's funny that you say learn to play all that nonsense because talking to Stefan from Obscura on Friday night, and I was thinking to myself, how do they write this stuff? And I was very surprised to find out that they used a program called Guitar Pro and pretty much made MIDI demos of everything before they actually attempted to try and play it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Very interesting concept. But
It
James,
is.
I wanted to start off, mate. We can get into the production a bit later on. I just wanted to know from you, how did you get started playing guitar, and what started the love affair for you?
I started somewhat late in life. I didn't start playing till I was about 18. But before that, I was playing drums. That was my main love. And to this day, I still wish I was a drummer. And I feel like a phony guitar player still to this day. But I grew up in a musical family, so I was always kind of, around music and, was in love with it. But the guitar thing started where it was almost strange. Within the space of 1 week, I was at a friend's house, and his older sister had an electric guitar, and it was just sitting in the corner. And I remember picking it up and, playing it, and he showed me how to play a basic riff. And I thought, oh, that's cool. That this riff that I'd heard so many times was quite easy to bring out. And I went home and I told my mum that, I played a guitar today and it was really cool. And it was my birthday not long after that. And she bought me, I think it was AC/DC Live at Donington Castle or something.
Cool.
Right. And I just remember that was it. Once I saw Angus Young doing what he does, I was hooked, and went out and bought my first guitar, which I wish I still had. I bought it for $40 from a hock shop here called Happy Hockers. I don't know if you've heard of this thing.
No.
It must just
what a name.
It must just be a Sydney-based thing. It had 2 strings on it, and I spent the first couple of months getting the bus across town so my friend could tune it up for me. And it just went from there, man. Once I started, I literally never stopped, and it just hasn't stopped since.
Wow. Now, you said your first love affair was the drums.
Yeah.
That's really funny because I was just talking to a friend over the last couple of nights, and I said to her that I always thought I'd be a drummer first up, but I'd watch film clips and sort of get the whole, these guys are crossing their hands over and they're doing this, and I think I could do that. And I started out playing the organ. My mum, being European, wanted me to play the piano accordion, and it was, not going to do that. how about the organ? So she got me the organ, and it had the drum
Yes.
machine built into it, which
Awesome.
really got me hooked on the sound of drum machines and experimenting with the tempo, turning it up to ridiculous tempos, and pretty much making drum and bass and jungle beats back when I was a kid. I loved all that stuff. But
Nice.
but the carry on from that is I can program drums really well. And listening to your stuff, the drums, that's all programmed, isn't it?
Well, the record stuff isn't. Like, if you're listening to my albums, that's a drummer called David Horgan, who's my
Oh,
bass
really?
player's brother, who I've been working with since, well, for longer than 10 years, actually. We played in a band together, a band that I used to do called Paradigm for years. And he was in that band with me, and I eventually left that to start doing a solo thing, and he's worked with me ever since on all of that. But I'm right there with you. I feel like I also have quite a good handle of the programming, and I actually get hired to program drums on people's records all the time, which is hilarious. And it's probably as close to the drumming dream that I really get to these days. So yeah.
There's some amazing programs out there now.
Yeah, that's true.
Easy Drummer 2 being the main thing I lean on these days.
Yeah.
I can remember when I first discovered Ola England's demos online, just thinking, is he taking 2 weeks to program these drums? How the hell does he do this? And then I saw him do a little thing on, this is how I do my drums. And it was one of those moments of take my money. Yeah. What do you use for your programming?
I use Superior.
Yep. So the big brother of it.
Yeah, I think it's still the first one, though. Like, there's a new one. I think it's Superior 2 now. I feel a bit out of touch. But yeah, I'm using the first one. I think Superior. Oh, no. Maybe I am using Superior Drummer 2, and now it's 3. But yeah, it's great, man. Sounds absolutely incredible. I put together all of my pre-production using Superior Drummer. So, yeah. So, you know, I'll record my entire album to program drums that I've done, and then they will get wiped at the end. So Dave gets to work with a completely mixed, edited, like, entire album, and then gets to do his own thing to it. So that's how I've kind of always done it.
Okay. So I kind of jumped a bit there into the whole production thing. You were saying, you know, you saw Angus Young and that was it.
Yes.
Did you happen on a teacher early on that got you on the way to being able to play Angus Young?
I did, man. So I was self-taught predominantly through kind of high school, just like noodling with friends and, you know, shredding in the mirror and all that kind of stuff. And I did see one teacher who was like quite formal in his approach, was like, you know, you need to learn all these chords and learn these scales. And that actually really turned me off the instrument, because at that time, I don't know, maybe I was just a really distracted younger kid, but I was just not into that kind of approach at all. I really just wanted to rock, for lack of a better term, you know?
Sure.
And so, like, I just always felt kind of fearful of going to those lessons, you know, fear of disappointing the teacher, and because I never did my homework, you know. It was like, go learn these scales, and I would go home and just do power chords all week long. And eventually I was ready to give up the guitar, and I kind of stopped playing it and got back into skateboarding and things like that. And my mum was like, no, you know, I'm going to get you to another teacher and you'll stick at it. And she sent me to this guy. His name was Peter Jacobs. And I only had about 4 or 5 lessons with him, but it was his approach that just totally changed the game for me, because I remember going into that first lesson. It was very ghetto. Like, it was in the back of this tiny little guitar store here. And it was like in a kitchenette out the back kind of thing. Yeah. And I remember he had like a Mesa Boogie stack in there, and I was just like blown away. And I just remember, like, the first thing he said to me was like, so what do you want to know? And I just couldn't believe that. I'd never been asked that before. And I remember saying, can you teach me this AC/DC song? You know, it was the Thunderstruck intro.
Cool.
And he was like, oh yeah, and just like busted it out straight away. And that just totally reignited my love with the instrument again. And And it wasn't many sessions, but it was enough that it was just like immediately it was fun again, and it was just all about having a really good time. And that kind of teaching, his teaching method is kind of what I try to adopt now with people. It's really about what they want to know, not what I think they should, know immediately, kind of thing.
Sure. I got to say I'm the same. That's the first thing I say to my kids that I teach. It's like, what are we learning today? To throw the ball in their court. It's funny. I had Erwin Thomas on last week, and he was saying his teacher was much like your first teacher in that he said, I'm going to show you a whole bunch of scales and things, and you're going to get really put off at first, but stick at it. Eventually, it's going to start making sense. And he said he was really glad that he went down that way, down that road. So I guess everyone's different in what they like. That I'd find that very off-putting myself. It was later in life that I decided to try and get a bit more knowing of what I was doing.
Me too.
So if Peter Jacobs was sort of teaching you stuff like that, how did you get so technically proficient? Because you're quite technical in your playing.
Yeah. I guess it was just a progression of things. Like at my core, I'm a rock guy. Like I'm a classic rock guy. That's my favorite kind of thing. But like all things, you kind of one thing gateways into the next. I started listening to AC/DC, and then it was Led Zeppelin and Sabbath and Floyd and Metallica and Pantera to Slayer to Dream Theater to Obscura, for example, and Necrophagist, and the slope of intensity just kept on going up. And so the more that I was exposed to this kind of music, I was just fascinated that people could play like that. I was like, well, here's like Jimmy Page on this side, which is great. And then you've got like, Steve Vai over here, for example. And it's like, there's this huge technical gap between those two players. And I guess I was just fascinated to see what I could do. Like, could I even try and play like that at all? And it's like anything, you see, I remember the first time I saw Steve Vai playing, like I think I bought one of the records back in the day when you would just buy a record because the cover was cool. That's actually how I discovered Van Halen. Really? Yeah.
Wow.
Totally. I went into a music store and I had my $20 and thought, I'm going to buy something cool. And it was the Women and Children First.
Yeah, right.
With the cover of, and Eddie's there with the guitar and the chains all hanging off it and everything. I was like, oh, this is badass. I'm going to buy this.
Yeah.
And but that same way I bought, I think is it Fire Garden? Is that Steve Vai album? Maybe I'm tripping out. Anyway, and
that does have quite a good cover. That's probably the one.
Yeah, and I just remember like hearing that playing and being like, what is going on here? And just really wanting to know if I could play like that too. And so I guess the more technical a player you become, the more you can use that to compose with, and the things that you can imagine become a little bit more complex because you can physically kind of comprehend what you're imagining it's going to play like as well. So yeah, just a lot of practice. I also just fell really in love with the instrument and went at it really hard for about 10 years. I didn't do much else except practice. I also went to music school, which was a big motivator. And when I went there, I was the best guitar player in my high school. And then when I left high school and went to music school, I was the worst guitar player. So I
really?
Catch up. Yeah, so I was just around. I think there was a lot of things went right in my kind of journey there, where I was exposed to a lot of really high caliber players that really motivated me to go back home and just sit in my room and practice as much as possible.
Nice. So, how did you get like just so flowing in your playing? Like it just flows. It's like liquid. Was there like a practice regime that you sat down and did for a while, or did you discover Steve Vai's 10-hour guitar workout? Or
no, man, I've just always I appreciate those kind words very much, by the way. That's very nice that you think that way.
No problem.
I still feel like an Egyptian mummy born again, trying to uncrust every time I play.
Don't we all?
Yeah, but I've just always been writing since day dot. I haven't really ever learnt songs from people. I didn't really start learning songs until I started teaching, and people wanted to know songs, and I would be like, oh shit, I better figure that out. But really since the very beginning, back on that $40 Samick Les Paul copy, that very first guitar, even then I was like doing little tapping diddles, and those were the things that drew me to the guitar, was that I could write my own stuff. And so I guess just my imagination, as it developed musically, it just demanded that I had to play these things. And so, yeah, I guess I'm just trying to answer the question of like the flowing aspect to it. Like I always think of everything that I play before I play it, so that I'm not kind of really thinking of patterns and stuff. After the fact, it looks like there's a lot of patterns going on, but I imagine phrases a lot. So some of the things I do is I'll imagine a long phrase, and then I'll go to the guitar and I'll try and flesh it out as accurately to how I thought it would be as possible. And so, yeah, that dictates a lot of my practice. So, yeah, I guess if that answers that question at all.
Cool. Yeah. Well, as I said, the one lesson I took with you really opened the door in dexterity, just going through the different combinations of fingers and picking.
Sure.
One thing I wanted to know is your approach to the fretboard, because everybody seems to approach a fretboard differently. Are you like a 3-note per string guy? Do you use the cage system? Do you learn it one string at a time? What's the view for you?
For me, if I had to, that's a good question. If I had to imagine the fretboard, I try to think of it in string pairs a lot of the time. So I'm often thinking about how the E and A string work together, and then how the D and G work together, and how the B and E work together.
Okay.
And when I break it down along those 3 pairs of strings, horizontally or vertically across the guitar, in my brain, it helps me map out where I'm going a lot easier, instead of trying to think of, say, an entire scale position box or an entire mode left to right kind of thing. I'm usually thinking in string pairs, and as I cross over to the next pair, my brain kind of reveals the next pair movement and all that kind of stuff, if that makes sense. It's a bit of a weird way of doing it, but that's how I think about it.
No, it totally makes sense. And then there's that damn B string where the interval is is different.
It's always a problem, no matter what.
Well, guys like Tom Quayle tune the guitar different to deal with that.
Oh, does he really?
Did you not know that?
I did not know that.
He tunes his whole guitar in fourths.
Huh. That's the more you know. He actually started following me on Instagram last week. And,
cool.
So I will no longer be doing legato in a public domain on the internet.
Man, I've got a video of that I did in Germany last year where I hosted a little guitar battle between him and Sammy Bowler, and
I watched that.
I don't know if it was before or afterwards. Thanks, man. It was really impromptu. He gave me his guitar to have a bit of a play on, and it was like, wow, okay. Well, I get that. Like, you don't have to adjust for the B string. But then he sat beside me and warmed up. And I got my camera out and sort of stuck it right up on his right hand and his left hand. And just the sound of him, it's like a typewriter, just when he's... It's amazing, on the stainless steel frets.
Yeah, man. I don't know if you've seen the video. There's this video lurking out there on the dark web of him doing legato on like a classical acoustic or something.
Really?
I think Tony Martinez, do you know him?
No.
Tony Martinez? Great guitar player, cool dude. I think him and Tom are quite good friends, and they've done a lot of clinics together and stuff. But I think Tony filmed this video of Tom Quayle just legatoing away on this like acoustic, and it was just like that. It was like you could hear the percussive like perfection and everything, and I remember being like, damn, that is some serious technique.
Absolutely. Actually, a friend of mine, Vladimir, also shot a video around the same time with him where he gave Vlad a bit of a lesson just on how he holds his hands and everything, just to get that flow. And it's quite a cool video. If anyone's looking for some ways to try and get that happening, try and play more like Tom Quayle. Catpick Studios. Catpick Studios on YouTube. Check that out. That'll give you a bit of an insight to how he does it all.
And I will.
Man, what other players out there that just make you go, whoa, that's insane?
Oh man, I don't really. There's too many to name. Like I'm too.
There's a lot now, isn't there?
People, there is a lot. But I guess while you were mentioning something about Tom Quayle, I was thinking back on that previous question about like the flow and the technique stuff you were talking about. And then it came to me. I guess one of the things I've always really valued in playing is the quality of what's being played. So I've always been really drawn to guys who have really good technique, whether that is, executed in a really complex way. Let's just say like, Malmsteen, for example, like really fast, crazy stuff. Or simple stuff like Gary Moore, where the vibrato like just makes it, and it's so vocal and nice. So I guess that's always been at the core of how I practice, is to try and have a lot of technical quality to what I'm trying to do, instead of it just being fast or, anything like that. And I think that's what I was trying to impart maybe in that lesson we had, was, I really value technique and doing it at a high quality level. And I hold myself really accountable to that stuff as well. So anyway, so as far as like players who blow my mind, again, both ends of the spectrum, dude. Like, this is going to sound really weird, but I think the thing that I've listened to more this year than anything else are like those early Sabbath records.
Wow.
Because I listened to them when I was really young. But it's like you listen to stuff when you're young, and then you get older and you learn stuff yourself, and you know what goes into making records and goes into playing, and then you go back and listen to it. I've just been so fascinated by like the soul and the heart and the technique and stuff that is like in that stuff. It's just, to me, really, really fascinating to go back at it now with hopefully a bit more of a mature ear and listen to it.
Cool.
So I have actually been going back and listening to a lot of like the early classic rock 60s and 70s prog stuff that I hadn't listened to in like 15 years.
Yeah.
So all those players are actually really fascinating me to the max. But then, all the new school guys like Martin Miller, Tom Quayle, Sammy Bowler as well. Like I was only, you mentioned him before, I was only introduced to his playing about a year and a bit ago, maybe.
Okay.
And then, we hung out at NAMM this year, and we both played at the Friedman booth. And I mean, he is just doing really cool, original stuff, like musically. Like musically, it's very, very nice. So yeah, and like all the other guys, like Nick Johnson, Pliny, absolute legend. Rowe from Melbourne, I Built the Sky, another great guitar player. I feel like there's just a lot of new up-and-coming guys in this wave of instrumental music that are just like world-class, absolutely amazing, like super inspiring, and I'm listening to all that stuff as well.
Man, I had to take a step back from Instagram. I don't check it out much because it just got too scary. There was too many guys that made me go, whoa, man, I got nothing compared to that.
Yeah, there's always some child prodigy to ruin your day before it started.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Yep.
Now, you said you started off, did you say a Hondo Les Paul with two strings? Or no, Onyx?
It was a Samick.
Samick, okay.
I wish I could tell.
And gear-wise, was it quite a progression to get to, because you're playing Sir now, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You had a few guitars that led up to that? Or did you sort of go from having the cheapies straight into a good guitar at an early age?
No. I had, man, I've probably had about 50 guitars since I've started playing. I started with that, and from there I went through a string of like weird pointy 80s guitars, which I really liked. Like I had some toothpaste Chevelles, and I had a Kramer with like the hockey puck, the hockey headstock stuff. Just all these terrible guitars. And I mean, like, they weren't terrible because they were bad, but they were just cheap. I bought these cheap guitars because they looked cool, basically. Yeah. Most of my young guitars decision making was because they looked cool. That's pretty much it. But I think I didn't really, like, my first proper guitar was a Gibson Les Paul, actually.
Oh, nice. Yep.
And a really nice... it was called a Desert Burst was the finish, I think, if you know the one. It was really nice. That at that point was the most expensive and nice guitar I'd ever had. And I loved it, and I eventually sold it because at the time I was playing in like progressive metal bands, and I was actually quite interested in tremolo and all, having a bar, and it ended up just gathering dust for a while. Because shortly after that, I got an endorsement with Carvin Guitars.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, it's strange. A lot of people don't know that. And this is before they were Kiesel or whatever they are now.
Yep. And
so I ended up getting a few of those. I had a custom-made 7-string and two... back then they were called the California Carve Top series. I think Kiesel do something similar to that now, but they had that PRS kind of look. It was like the double cut arch top thing. Yep. So I had two of those, and I loved those, and they were really nice. And so from there I actually had a PRS that I thought was really nice, and I still think they're a lovely looking guitar, but I just had really bad luck with this one for whatever reason. Like it started delaminating on the neck and had some issues with it. And so strangely enough, as I was having the issue with that guitar, a friend of mine had a Sir, and I'd never heard of them before. And he brought it over to a guitar store that I was working at. And he was like, dude, you got to check this thing out. And I played it. And I just remember feeling like it was the easiest feeling playing guitar that I'd ever played. I just couldn't believe how effortlessly I could pull out all my party tricks on it. And so that started my whole thing with Sir. And funnily enough, at the time I was really into Guthrie Govan. I just discovered him, and then I discovered that at the time he was playing Sir. And so I was like, oh, this is all meant to be.
Yep.
And so I saved up lots of money and bought my first one. And then, that started my relationship with Sir, which is nearly going to be 10 years, I think.
Wow.
This year. Yeah, so I've been playing Sir guitars for nearly 10 years, which is crazy to say and think about, yeah.
Is your main Sir built on any production model, or is it something that's completely custom to you?
You mean like my black guitar, for example?
Yeah.
Well, they have a production that it's based off the Sir Modern, which is one of their production model guitars. But I spec'd the guitar completely from like the ground up, and I actually based it off like that Les Paul thing. Like I'm still a Les Paul guy deep down. Like I'm still like Jimmy Page in the dragon suit with a Les Paul on my knees. I wish, So it's like a mahogany-based guitar, mahogany neck, mahogany body, maple cap kind of thing. It's got those kind of ingredients. Yeah. I love that guitar. I use it live predominantly. In fact, a lot of people don't know this, but on the records, 95% of the time you're hearing my Sir Antique, which is like the Stratocaster style one.
Oh, right. Okay.
That's what almost 100% of my albums are recorded with.
Wow. Okay.
I know that I always get that reaction.
Yeah, because in the clips you've got the modern.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a bit of a Strat guy myself. So when you said you're a Les Paul guy at heart, I do see your what did you call it? The Strat looking one? What's that?
The Antique.
Antique. Yeah.
They call it an Antique S. So this is like a custom made one as well.
Yeah. Right. If I was to get a Sir, it'd probably be something like that. Very much like that.
It's I mean, look, it's lovely. This one, you can see it's got the humbucker in the back, and
beautiful.
It's like done some serious time, this guitar. Most of this is me just clumsy near my desk.
Oh, really? So that's not a relic job? You've actually
It
relic it
was a
naturally.
relic of originally, yeah. It had some aging on it, but yeah, I've also given it my fair share of scarring. But it's funny saying being a Strat guy. So I always loved the sound of Strats. You know, I think there's something about single coils where the note has this unpredictability, which is really fascinating. Mm-hmm. You know, a humbucker, you play the note, it's going to sound the same over and over again. It's got this like kind of wonderful consistency to it. But I've always been fascinated by that like individual character of every note on a single coil. It's always, you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, right.
That's how I feel about it anyway.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until I discovered Sir and I started playing their like Strat style guitars that for the first time I could have a Strat that was easy to play and felt glidey and slippery and easy, but had that sound, you know, because I'm not a fan of, you know, battling the battle axe guitar, which most of my Strat experiences at that time had been.
Yeah.
So yeah, that guitar has just become like my favorite guitar. I absolutely love it.
And you got Floyd Roses on those, or was that a Godot that I saw on that one just then?
Yeah, they're the Godot 510s,
yep.
The 510 bridge, which I have on all of them. It's my favorite bridge ever. I absolutely love it.
Uh-huh. I've actually got one sitting in my little drawer over there, just waiting to put together a little parts cast on one of these days. I've probably got enough parts for it now that I think of it. Yeah, and I've never had a guitar with a 510, so that's sitting there. I should do something with it.
Oh, it's just glorious, man. It takes a lot of punishment and stays in tune. I mean, you know, you're obviously not going to do your Steve Vai throwing around business with it, but it has just the most non-resistive, airy kind of vibrato feel to it. Like if you're doing, you know, the trem across a chord, for example,
yep.
It's just really nice and very musical sounding bridge. I think you'll really like it.
Actually, I do have a spare body. Yeah. You just inspired me. I might throw something together with the 510 on there. I was saving to get something with a Floyd Rose. I wanted a bit of Floyd Rose action back in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. But mainly because if I break a string on a Floyd, I can put it back on. You know, you cut the ball end off. Well, if you leave enough slack, broke a string, put it back on.
Yeah.
I'm not lucky enough to have a string endorsement. If I did, then I probably wouldn't care. But, you know, you got to save some money somehow when you're a broke muso like me.
Those strings last, totally.
Yeah. How about amps, man? Tell us about your journey amp-wise. What was your first one?
Oh, my first amp? I actually still have it.
Oh.
It's behind that chair over there. It's one of those little Marshall MG10, it just sounds absolutely atrocious. But you know, I remember at the time you would turn the overdrive to full and it would give you that immediate like chuggy tone and I was just blown away by that. So I'm actually very happy that I still have that.
Nice.
Yeah, man. Like obviously now playing the Friedman amps, and I was only a convert to the British style hot rodded Marshall thing about 5 years ago. My whole life up until that point, I'd been really into the American voiced amps. And look, I had a lot of amps. I worked in guitar stores kind of straight out of school up until maybe 7 years ago. Or maybe longer. Yeah, maybe like 7 or 8 years ago. And so I've pretty much played most amps that have existed, whether they be vintage or kind of current things. And so I've had a lot of amps. You know what it's like when you work in that world or you're near that world and gear is more accessible to you. You know, you just kind of have everything. You just constantly trading stuff and buying stuff. And so I've had a lot of amps. For the longest time I was playing boogie amps. I think I was playing them for the longest up until I was playing the Friedman, and I've had them all. I've had Road Kings, Jewel Rex, Mark V's, all of that nonsense.
Cool.
Still got some in storage somewhere. Got an old 5150 somewhere. Yeah, I mean, and so yeah, obviously now I'm just very into the hot rodded Marshall thing. Just, you know, particularly the BE thing, because I always loved that sound. You know, like I said, being a classic rock guy, I love that pokey mid-range kind of blocked nose hay fever rock tone. But like the same thing I was saying about the Strat, I'm not into fighting the gear that I'm playing. And I've played lots of vintage plexis, and again, like unless you had them on like, stroke volumes, they're just kind of not that great to play. Like you really have to work 10 times as hard for the same result, or at least I found I did.
Mm-hmm.
And but I always wanted to have that sound. So there's almost like a synergy there with my discovery of like the Sir take on stuff. It was the Friedman take on that really finally connected those dots for me, where I could have that tone, but it was in a very almost like mixed and mastered style sound straight out of the box. I could play it at low volume. It was very effortless and musical. And so, yeah, that's kind of just what I'm really into now. I'm really into using that classic Brit tone in like a heavy setting. I'm really into that.
Cool. And have you delved much into the modelers and the digital side of things as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. I've been using fractal gear for probably the same amount of time. And I adore it. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think everything has its place and its uses. And on tour, I use the AX8, which is actually there. I don't know if you can see it.
Yep, sure can.
I've just recently got it mounted to that lovely Nautilus board, which was kindly sent to me by Nautilus Effects, Australian board company. Absolutely beautiful. So I use that on tour just because, like guys like me, impossible to take a rig on the road. Mm-hmm. And, BE 100s aren't exactly in every venue for me to use.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love it, man. And I've got the Axe FX 2 as well, which I use. My records are usually a blend of everything. So I do a lot of reamping with heads and a lot of Axe FX as well. So cool. I really love being a guitarist right now and just having all those options. There's kind of something for every situation.
There's definitely a lot of options available, isn't there? If you're You mentioned reamping. What are you using to reamp your stuff? Is there a particular interface?
I've got the Sir Reactive Load, which is fantastic. I've got the first one and recently just got the second one, the IR, so you can actually load impulse responses right into it. So I've used the Own Hammer stuff. A bunch of the Fractal cabinets as well are fantastic. Mm-hmm. And so, the technology makes it so easy with the Reactive Load IR. It has all of its own impulse responses, or cabinet models. You can load your own ones in there. And so I can literally just crank on a head, plug that into my interface, boom. It's
nice.
Just sweet.
And that's how you're recording most of your guitars for your albums?
Yeah, about 50-50. So I'm a big believer that the amp that you play through, it really, at least in my opinion, like I play the amp as much as I'm playing the guitar.
Sure.
Like the way that it makes this, for me, all I'm looking for in an amp is how it makes the guitar feel. Like, does it give me confidence? When I go for that thing, will that thing happen? Or will the amp push back on me and make the strings feel a little less elasticy and that kind of stuff? So, obviously certain heads have certain characteristics. On the new record, I used the BE 100 for a bunch of stuff and the Dirty Shirley for a bunch of stuff. And they just made me play really different ways. So cool. There's quite big differences in the songs that those are on. And so for the rest of the stuff, like the leads and the cleans and all of the embellishing stuff, I'm just straight into the front of the Axe FX too. And they come together beautifully. Nice.
I've never tried a Dirty Shirley. I had the small box for a couple of years, and I absolutely adored that amp. It was an amazing amp.
I remember when you had that, yeah.
Yeah, I want to get one again. I might see if Dave can do a tweak on the BE channel on it and maybe give it the Steve Stevens treatment, because I have played the Steve Stevens head, and oh yeah, that's a sound I like right there.
Yeah, dude, that's badass.
So how does
the Shirley is awesome, man.
What's that?
The Shirley was awesome. You were just saying you haven't played one.
Yeah, what's different about about the Shirley to the small box or a Brown Eye?
To me, the difference is like the Brown Eye is very refined sounding to my ear. Like I said, it has this kind of mixed and mastered quality about it, which is really nice. Makes the guitar just feel like rubber bands. It gives me lots of confidence, that kind of sound.
Yep.
The Dirty Shirley is like the total opposite to me. It's like doesn't give a shit if I'm having a good time or not. It's just like raw, old school. You really got to earn what you're trying to get at on that thing.
Okay.
And it's really cool for that total opposite kind of feel.
Yep. How about effects? Do you use much effects when you're playing?
Look, I can't say that I do. I've never actually been a big like pedal guy. I've certainly had pedal boards for the sake of just wanting to have one and look at it, and then I just get pissed off at having to wire it all together and get rid of it all.
Yeah.
So I've never been a big effects guy. I love overdrives. I love delay and that kind of stuff. But no, not really. Like I've right now, say if I'm going out on tour, I have everything coming from the AX8, and there isn't a lot going on there. I really have 4 patches. Mm-hmm. And the way I have it set up is, down the bottom, there's the 4 switches, and then at the top, there's another 4 switches. So I have it set up. So let's just say number 1 is my clean channel. It defaults to going to the amp model and the necessary effects, but the top 4 also become a virtual pedal board.
Okay.
So in those top 4, I have like rotary, like I have a Leslie thing that I can turn on and off, a different reverb and a different delay, and I can control both of those with the pedal, with the expression pedal. And same thing, but different stuff for 2, 3, and 4 rhythm lead kind of sounds. But haven't been too big on effects. On this new record, though, it's funny you say that. I used a lot of wah. I used a lot of phaser, which is something I've really never done before.
Cool.
And some flanger on solos and stuff, just to make it sound kind of trippy and cool. But those have all been fractal, like in the box kind of effects.
Yeah, right. It's funny you should say adding some flanging or phasing, because EVH was, his classic sound was to always whack on the phaser when he was doing solos.
Yeah, totally.
And it wasn't until I was playing in a cover band with a bunch of guys that would get me along when they needed to be a 4-piece. Their lead guitar player was amazing. But he'd always throw on the phaser, the EVH little MXR job for his solos, and it just made it pop out, man. Like just that slight thing. I don't think he used much of a volume boost, but that was enough just to make it sit out front a little. It was really cool.
Yeah.
So
man.
Is that how you were using the phaser when you said you put on a bit?
Not gently. I'm using it really aggressively.
Yeah.
So there's just a few passages where I wanted that to have that really like trippy kind of. When I think phase or flange, I think of suddenly the guitar like goes underwater kind of thing.
Okay, yeah.
And so I tried to get it to sound as much like that as possible. So not for big moments, but certain phrases I would add it into stuff.
Sure. How about delays and reverbs and stuff? When you're taking solos, do you throw much of those on?
Always do.
Yeah.
My whole like delay philosophy comes from John Petrucci. Like I love the way he uses delay because I play in a 3-piece band as well. Like I don't have backing guitar behind me. So I always just loved how he, when he goes to do a lead, it just fills the whole room and the whole thing with this like epic, sunshine through the clouds kind of thing. And so I go for that as well. So my take on delay is I like a clean kind of analog-ish mix in stereo, and I love that ping pong sound. Mm-hmm. Pretty much usually always set 550, 750 milliseconds kind of thing. So it's kind of chasing me around the fretboard, that kind of effect.
Okay.
And I just have different levels of that for different solos, really.
Yeah, right. So do you said 550, 750. Do you ever adjust it to the tempo of the song? Do you use the tap tempo on your pedal board? No.
No, ain't got no time for that.
So when you're playing live, you're not using. Are you playing to a track at all when you go?
We're playing to a track. So
and do you have program changes going on within that, like, or do you automatically? Does it automatically change from program change numbers as part of your track, or do you manually change the sound as you're going?
Oh no, I'm still manually, like stepping on the wrong buttons constantly through the set.
Yeah.
I see these guys talk, how they've got their, like a Mac triggering their patch changes, and I'm just like, oh my God, I feel like way too much of a boomer to even comprehend how techie that must be.
Yeah.
So
right.
I'm still there, just like stomping on stuff, trying to make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't actually had that yet where I've been in a situation. I've played with tracks in the past, but not had program change numbers. And I don't know, I guess you'd get used to it, but there's just something about, well, no, this is what I want to use right now. I changed my mind from last night. I want this patch now.
Totally. I mean, I would like to try it. It makes sense to how we do it. Like we run to tracks, and if we make a mistake, there's no fixing it. Like we can't make mistakes when we play. So it makes sense to have the patch changes, say run off the same computer or something like that. So I think I actually am going to look into that. And instead of taking the AX8 out, I might be able to take like a rack unit out, which would make it a little bit easier. But yeah, so for now though, I'm just still kind of stomping away.
Cool. Now, your music's really technical. How do you go about writing that? I know, talking to the guys from Obscura, they were saying that they were using Guitar Pro and making little MIDI demos of it first, and then actually attempting to learn to play it afterwards. Is there a process for you? And how do you remember the arrangements and how everything goes?
With great difficulty.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm familiar with guys who do it the Guitar Pro way, which totally boggles my mind because I've never used Guitar Pro. I mean, I can barely read tab, let alone make it. I've always been an ear against the speaker, the slow way approach kind of guy.
Okay.
And that's how I write too. I mean, I talk about this a lot with students who I do songwriting with, and my approach is that I always write from what I call the linear approach. So I don't commit an idea to the session. So say I sit down to write a song, I don't commit an idea unless it is to be used as the very opening idea of the song. So I only ever will imagine an intro of some description, whether it be a rhythmic thing or something on the keys or a guitar idea. I'll try and imagine whatever it is as long as it's the first thing that's going to happen in the song.
Okay.
Which took me years to get right because as a guitarist, impulsively, you want to kind of come up with a riff first. You want to come up with some kind of riff or some kind of chord structure or something. And I just found the more that I did that, the more I was just making this problem for myself of, I would write this riff and maybe that riff was like this central part of the song. And then I had this problem of I had to write, backwards in time to the intro and then forwards in time to the end of the song. And my arrangements were just like not satisfactory when I did it that way. I just found it was like the riff salad kind of approach.
Okay. Yep.
So I always try to imagine the intro, and from there I will work just forward in time until I have the complete song, essentially, is how I do it. That's kind of the short way of describing it.
I think people overlook the fact that the best bit of gear, I know guys that spend all this money on gear, be it for playing guitar, studio, video, and some of these guys, the more gear they have, the worse their productions are, because they're trying to rely on that and they're not getting the fact that your best creative tool is this and these, being able to hear something in your head and then going after it. You don't need all the gear in the world. So it sounds like maybe by you imagining the intros and everything, you're shooting for something that's actually good and not letting technique or gear dictate the song.
Oh yeah, never. Like I only like people say that as far as playing technical, when people say that my music is technical, and I'd agree with that. There's times where it's technical, but I only try to learn enough technique to facilitate the kind of music that I want to make. And so sometimes I just want to make really crazy sounding stuff. And so I need to have enough technique to do that. But it's never the point of it, like technique for the sake of technique. Sure. I actually find technique and practicing it and learning it, it's like stressful,
Totally.
But it has a musical application, like speed, for example, in music has a musical application. I think as long as it's not just speed for the sake of speed, I liken it to when you see just talking about Instagram guitar players, for example, if it's like every video you ever see from someone is them playing something really fast, by that fourth or fifth video, it's like just really discounted, in my opinion. Like it's not that impressive anymore. Whereas if speed is suddenly injected musically into some scenario, it's like, whoa, shit, that's really impressive.
A big eye-opener on that was going to Soundwave a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And they had all these bands, Dragon Force and all that kind of thing. And these guys are notorious for just absolutely shredding. Mm-hmm. And then I noticed it was just going over the general public's head. You probably have one or two guitar heads that are going, oh, that's amazing. Mm. Then Alice in Chains came on. And Jerry's up there doing his soulful thing, man, playing the right part for the song. And then every now and then he'd just do a little, just a couple of seconds of a little flurry of notes. And the crowd would just erupt and go, yay, every time he'd do that, because he knew that, no, man, I'm playing some beautiful melodies here and I'm just going to throw a bit of that out. There you go. And yeah, it has a lot more impact that way, doesn't it?
I think so. And I certainly try to adopt speed in that sense as well. Like I try to inject it into the music to serve a musical purpose. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so as far as writing, man, that's how I do it. I've always done it that way from the very beginning. I at least since the beginning of making records, I try to start right at the beginning. And if I come up with a riff because I feel like it, I actually just forget that riff. I just let it go because I know that it will just present this issue that I have to untangle if I just commit this riff and then try to work in front of it and after it. And I do this with people sometimes. I'll say, all right, let's write a riff, for example, call it the snowball effect, right? If I just write a progression and then I just cut it off at the bar line, I'll go, what do you reckon should happen next? And never someone goes, oh, I don't know. It's always oh, it should do this next, because that musical information always kind of dictates what should come next. And so I find that to be really true. So if I write an idea that's an intro, when I finish for the day, I'll get in the car, I'll go for a walk, and I'll listen to that demo that I made that day. And whenever it stops, my brain always is like, oh, I should try this next. And this snowball effect kind of starts. And cool. And that's my approach to songwriting. Okay,
so how about production-wise? The gear that you use for your productions, because you said that you record everything yourself. How did you get into the production side of things, and what gear are you using? And as you do that, I'm just going to have a quick bio break, and I can still hear you. I'll be back in 30 seconds.
Yes.
So yeah,
this would happen.
Yeah. Yes. How did you get into the production side of things, and what gear are you using?
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess I got into the production side of things just out of necessity, not being able to afford to get into studios, or really having access to people that could do what I needed at a pace that was, something that I would want to do. So, plus technology, I guess, makes these things a lot easier. Anyone can now grab a copy of Pro Tools and teach themselves just how to get going, and it's inspiring. So I think getting some results with home recording just makes you want to do better every single time. And that was true for me as well. I started off on a little Behringer like RCA interface thing, and just slowly improved the studio into where it is now. But it's all pretty simple. Welcome back.
Nobody was none the wiser.
That's right. So yeah, so like, I don't have lots of outboard gear or anything like that in the studio. It's actually it's quite simple, and every piece that I've added to it really needs to serve the purpose that it needs to be very easy and inspiring. Like, I don't want to come in here and be going problem solving gear or trying to have to do a million things before I can start riffing. Like, I just want to hit a button and off I go. And so everything is kind of set up that way. I do everything in the box, so plugins and
cool. And you mentioned Pro Tools. You're a Pro Tools guy?
I am, yeah.
And you're right. Everything is available in the box now, isn't it? Like you don't need. I've got just sitting here a nice preamp, and I've got an 1176 compressor. Mm-hmm. I very rarely use those unless I'm tracking vocals for somebody else. I don't sing myself on anything, but everything in the box now is great. And
yeah, man, I think the results between hardware and in the box is all debatable. I think if using a piece of hardware like an old compressor or getting your hands on like a Chandler or something, if that inspires you, then that's worth it just for that. Like, if it just gives you that little zing of inspiration, that's awesome.
You're a freaking mind reader. I said I got a preamp there and it's a Chandler.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So like, I think gear is good for that. I feel the same way about amps. I mean, amps, if just looking at it and smelling it and turning those knobs gives you some inspiration, then it's worth it. But if you don't need that and you're happy with the digital solution, then that's great too. I think they all sound as good as each other and they all have a place, so like, I'm self-taught like anyone else when it comes, not like anyone else, sorry, but like a lot of guys these days when it comes to recording. I just started doing it out of necessity because I work quickly and I didn't want to have to wait to go to studios and stuff like that. I just wanted to have an album right now.
Yeah.
And you do your first thing and you listen back on it and you get some more experience and you go, wow, that sounded like absolute garbage, and you learn for the next one, and again, and just hope to do better than the last time. That's all I ever really hope to do.
It takes a while, doesn't it? And a lot of trial and error. And
yeah,
like
man.
you say, hearing stuff that you've put out and thinking, wow, okay, I need to improve this, that. Do you find that you want to go back and redo those albums as you've gotten better with the production?
Definitely not. My thing has always been, like, I don't care if something sounds shit or that my playing, may not have been as good then as it is now or anything. My whole philosophy has always been that, like, if I'd have died and someone came across my record, I would really want that to be a reflection of the kind of person that I was, so that I really cared. So that I investigated how to do it the best I could with the knowledge that I had. And you know what it's like as a musician. It's always a problem of, the more you know, the less you know, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And so, I can say, looking back on those records, that, at the time I really gave it, like, I tried to know everything I could. I tried to do the best job I could. I tried to get the best take every time and tried to mix it as best as I could. But then, you finish that, and eventually that kid grows up and you have to let it off into school. And, the next time, again, you now know more, but you know less. So you try to do better, and that just goes on and on.
We just had a question thrown at us by Nick, and I think you've already answered this, but he's asking if your writing process involves digital drum tracks or an actual drummer.
It's me programming all the pre-pro for the demo. So I program drums to help me get a really good complete image of, like, where the song is going and what it's going to sound like at the end. and it helps me mix. To have that range of stuff in there, like all the cymbals and the top end and the low end and the kicks and all that kind of stuff. So, no, man, it's all me. It's all a very lonely experience.
It can get that way. I just got a laptop, so you're seeing me on a laptop here, and that has been great because my iMac, which is just over here, I was always chained to that for anything I wanted to do, be it music, video, even down to doing thumbnails for everything that you put online. So getting a laptop has really opened the door of being able to go and sit at a friend's place. And even if there's a movie on, I'm just in somebody else's company and not sitting by myself working
that's
away.
Funny that you say that because I'm looking at doing the exact same thing this year. I said that as soon as I was done with like everything to do with this new record, I'm gonna finally get rid of the old iMac, and like I've got all this gear in a rack and all this stuff, and I follow all of these like Instagram like studio porn pages, and like whenever I just see someone set up where it's like, a little laptop like a MacBook and like that one UA interface and like a pot plant, I'm like, oh, that's what I want. That's all I want. Like just the most basic setup, like nice and simple. And so I've got a few more bits and pieces to do with the new record, like all the live tracks and stuff. But once that's done, I'm finally I'm on this iMac that I've used since 2011, so it's quite old.
I got a 2011 as well, mid 2011.
Yes, mid 2011.
Yep. I've souped that up and got.
So I only haven't upgraded it because it's like never had an issue. It's just amazing.
I've blown the graphics card out on it and I got that replaced, but that's the only issue I've had. I put a solid state drive in it that I boot from. I put a secondary drive that I record all my audio to, and it kicks butt.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
I think about how this computer has been like powered on for like a decade. And even just then, like I finished my new record, some of the songs were rocking like 60 tracks, and like no lag or issues or anything like that. It's
well,
quite
now
cool.
with Pro Tools, with the ability to be able to freeze tracks, especially, it's just not an issue. Before you had to have this super bloody computer. The one thing that it does let me down on is multicam editing in Final Cut. So that's why the new MacBook, I'm hoping will handle that a lot more.
I agree, man. Video has never been great with this one either. It's like as soon as I try, because I got like a camera recently, so I of course put everything to like the highest quality setting it would go, and as soon as I tried to get that on my computer would just have like an immediate heart attack. So it doesn't do the video thing very well.
Yeah. I'm going to bring up injury through overplaying. Because I have struggled in recent years. We haven't talked about whether you've played in cover bands and stuff along the way. I did a lot of that. And in fact, I said yes to way too many cover bands a few years ago and developed tendonitis and RSI in my fingers. And it's taken me a long time to get over that. In fact, the whole lockdown thing, I spent the first 2 months of that just didn't touch the guitar at all. Stopped going to the gym, all that kind of stuff. Just thought, just give the body a break. Yeah. And I was surprised to recently see on your Facebook that you've had a bit of trouble with injury yourself lately.
Yeah.
Is that something that's plagued you for a while?
Yeah. Well, it's plagued me it plagued me properly for about a year, and then there was about 6 months of recovering, and now I'm fine. But yeah, it was really, really a dark time while it was going on, and it's hard to know why it started. It's probably just a combination of, I think, over the last 3 years, I think I've played more and harder than I think I ever have, especially doing this new record. I would work on it 6 hours a day, and then I would teach 4 hours a day, and then I was touring and I was doing gigs and all of this stuff at the same time. So there just really wasn't like a period there for a few years where I wasn't like smashing the guitar really hard. And plus, you know, like we're not getting any younger and all that kind of thing. And it just hit me one day. It was really strange. I was in a lesson with a guy over Skype, and I didn't have any pain or anything, but I went to bend a string and it just didn't happen. Like I just couldn't bend it.
Wow.
And I thought, oh, that's odd. I must have just done something clumsy there. And I kept repetitively trying to bend the string, and I just didn't have the strength to bend it. And so, as you can imagine, like I had to stave off a giant anxiety attack for the rest of that session. And then after it, I remember like I kept trying for like the course of the evening. And that's when I started to notice like, oh shit, there's something really wrong with me here. Like I cannot play properly anymore. Wow. And I would wake up in the night at like 2 a.m. for weeks to just like come in here and start bending stuff and just see if I was working. Oh, and the other great thing about that was that this happened like 3 days before I went and did a tour with So like, yeah, my motivation to do that tour was at an all-time low, and I just, you know, taking the stage, I didn't know if I had to play my music. I didn't know if it was going to work or what was going to happen. And it did work, but it was hard. Like I could tell that there was problems while I was playing. So dude, that started like a year of doctors and trying to get to the bottom, find it out and what was really going on. And it just mentally, I found it really difficult. Like I'm a really optimistic, happy guy. And even through that, I was very optimistic that I'd get through it. And I continued to play and work and do everything that entire time. But I was background becoming frustrated that I couldn't seem to overcome it because it was going on for about a year. And eventually it was like, all right, I really need to find out what's going on. So I had scans done on both my arms, and that revealed that I just had like extensive tearing through my forearms in all the tendons. And, you know, tendons don't get blood supply the same way that other things in your body do, so they take so long to heal. So I was told, look, you just need to stop playing guitar for 6 months. So I was like, that's just like not going to happen. It's just a nightmare scenario for me. So yeah, like I said in the post, I went and saw a physio, and this guy was a really charismatic, eccentric dude. He was like, no, you don't want to stop playing. He's like, that's the worst thing you can do, because doctors say to people you should stop playing. And look, things I guess work differently for people, but his approach was, you know, you stop playing and stop using your arms, and then basically while you're doing that, your muscles and everything are just atrophying, so you're just getting weaker and weaker, and then you come back to play and you're in a worse position now than before, and then you get stuck in this loop and people just kind of make themselves worse and worse. So he was like, you need to start conditioning and exercising to support what you're doing now. And again, he was like, you know, you're not getting any younger. It's not like when you're young and you can just smash yourself and have no repercussions. And he's a Guinness World Record winning rock climber.
Oh, wow.
So I remember seeing like his arms, and he was just like mega jacked. And I was like, I want those arms when I play guitar.
Yeah.
And he was like, look, from now on, you're only going to get out what you put in. So you really need to put in looking after your arms now and strengthening them and keeping them flexible. And so I was given this whole routine of stuff that I have to do. And I was like, all right, well, let's just get it done. And Sarah, my fiance, was really supportive and made sure I did the exercises constantly. And within about 3 weeks, I remember being like, God damn, I'm back. Like,
nice.
No pain, feeling strong, feeling good. Kept coming in here all hours of the night to just play because I felt so good again. And so I keep it up all the time. But yes, it was a very dark time. And I was amazed to see how many people messaged me. I'm not joking. I probably had like 100 messages from like big players, big dudes, like peers of mine, who were like, I suffer from this, but don't say anything because they don't want people to think that they're like damaged goods or they won't get hired for a gig or something. It was crazy.
Yeah. You know, man, it's so funny. I had exactly the same experience where went to see a doctor, a GP, and they said, stop playing, just don't play.
Yeah.
Exactly like you said. And that was the worst thing, man. I totally, my playing suffered. I forgot how to navigate the fretboard. That's never been a big thing for me. You know, for many years, I was just, we're playing an A minor. Here I am at the 5th fret. So it took me a long time to expand and learn the whole fretboard. So when I do have time off, it's not second nature. I forget all that. But that exact thing of it didn't get better. My arms just got weak. And it wasn't until I saw a physio, and it was exactly the same as what you said. No, man, you got to strengthen this. You got to get back in the gym. You got to do forearm exercises, nice and slow with light weights, to the curls and that to build up. Right. Yeah, in the elbows, because that's where a lot of the issues were.
That's where it was for me. It was like very similar to like tennis elbow in both of my arms. So the pain was like really in my elbows.
Yeah,
I'm playing, just be like, just so painful in my arms. Yep. So that was the region for me.
Yep, tennis elbow and golfer elbow. So it was like both sides in one of my arms. But yeah, so he had you doing like the light, slow wrist curls and stuff as well to try and
Yeah, so like forward and back twice a day, reps of 40, stretches, all kinds of stuff.
The other thing that the physio had me do, which really helped, and I'm bringing this up because I've come across a lot of people that have had tennis elbow or golfer's elbow, not just guitar players, but just every day, that have had shit advice from GPs, just like we had. The other thing that really helped me was static holds. I'm not sure if your physio got you to do those. So what I mean by that is just getting a weight and just holding it.
Yeah, right.
45 seconds of just at a right angle. It's hard for me to get it to be on camera. So holding it for 45, 45 break, and then the other way is round as well.
Interesting.
And it wasn't until I started doing those that I started to get some sense of recovery. But I got to say, when I had those little breaks away from the guitar, when I first pick it up, oh man, I'm shit. And I made a complete ass of myself a year or two ago at a musician's party here on the Gold Coast, where a friend of mine, Licia, great female guitar player, wouldn't take no for an answer. Come up and jam with me. I'm like, I haven't touched the guitar in 3 months, And I got up there and I just had nothing. I just felt silly. But usually, when I do have those extended breaks, within a week or two, I'm back better than I ever was.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny how that works. You momentarily kind of have to learn how to ride the bicycle again, but once you're back, it's kind of better than ever. I feel that, man. Like, and I just think I really do believe now, like, I'm only really going to get out what I put into it. And I think everyone arrives at that point eventually, especially if you're playing at like a really high level all the time. Maybe not such a big issue if you're just playing like not such technically demanding stuff all the time. But also, even if you're not, like a bunch of guys are just like, man, I've just been totally railroaded in every aspect of my playing by this. And you just really have to work it like a runner. It's like if you told me right now to just go run 1 kilometer, like I'd probably have like a giant range of injuries at the end of it. So yeah, and I made the post because I talk to people about it all the time, and those close to me knew I was going through it, and bands that I would tour with were like always asking how I was going, and that they also had the same thing. And I don't know, I just felt like there was a weird culture of like a lot of guys go through it and don't talk about it. And it's nothing to be like ashamed of or worried about. Like, you're doing something kind of extraordinary if you play guitar for a living. I think it's really unnatural for like us chimps to be like huddled over these sticks with strings all day long. Like, it's just not very natural, and it can injure you, so a close friend of mine, same thing, came down with the same kind of problem and kind of pulled on a heartstring of mine. So that's why I just shared the story, because I think a lot of people think a lot of guys are just invincible and and that nothing is ever going to happen to them. But lots of guys go through it. It's totally normal. It comes with the territory, I think.
Well, Steve Vai had quite a bad run where he talked about it recently on a live stream about losing a lot of the use of his right arm through a bit of damage that he picked up in a South American hospital when he was on tour.
Dang.
Don't know if you know about that, but he says he just can't pick the way he used to after that. And it was funny, Thomas McLaughlin, who I interviewed a couple of weeks ago, if people are seeing this and they're not familiar with my channel, go and check out the playlist. I've had a few big guys, more than a few guys. Everyone here is a named player. He was saying that he had 20 years off. He just didn't play at all for 20 years. And it's only been 2 years ago that he decided to get back into it. But he also said that Steve Vai, when he was mentoring him, would have 6 months off and not play at all. But I think those guys, you can always still exercise this, your imagination, your creativity.
Of course.
So I think once you reach a certain level of technical proficiency, you don't need to have it actually in your head. You can in your hands. You can hear it in your head, and you kind of automatically know how to play that.
Dude, I totally agree. I think it runs off that same principle of like when you're trying to remember something. Like at one point you knew something really clearly and immediately, and it gets logged in the hard drive. And, you try to think of that thing and then you think about it and at first it's kind of stiff and crusty and then it's like, oh, it comes back to you. I think playing is very much that way as well with the muscle memory part of it. Like I know that I could take 6 months off playing and probably love that. Like I don't ever get that problem where I'm like, oh, I haven't played in a couple of days. I really got to, I don't get that ever. I'm never able to do that because I make a living playing. So I kind of have to play all the time.
Sure.
But I think that could be very beneficial to take an extended period off. You gain some experience in other ways, bring all that wisdom back to the instrument. Interesting.
I find if I play too much, I start playing the same thing over and over. And it all starts sounding the same. And this morning I had a good play, and it was the first time I'd sat down for maybe a week and had a little bit of a play. I like to put in term backing track into YouTube. 90% of what comes up is elevated jam tracks, which is my friend Tom. He just owns YouTube when it comes to backing tracks.
I've made over so many of those tracks.
Yeah, man. Well, that's Tom in the UK. He's a lovely chap, man. I hung out with him in Germany last year at 42 Gear Street. Yeah, top lad.
Dude. Yeah, there's that and this Benjamin Harrison guy. I don't know if you're familiar.
I haven't come across him yet, no.
Oh, man. I feel like recently I just kind of discovered that he possibly lives in Sydney. And if he does, I'm so going to track him down and be like, dude, I play against your backing tracks every single day.
Yeah. I quite often drop the little comment on Tom's YouTube channel underneath it. Mate, awesome to have Morning Coffee Jam with you again. And then I'll shoot him a private message on Facebook as well and just go, man, today's one was great. He puts out a new one every day.
God, that's crazy. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, totally.
Because there's nothing like I jam to backing tracks every day too, without fail. Like it's just a part of my practice, and it's just wonderful when you find one that you really gel with, and it's got good production and it like suits your kind of natural tempo ranges. And I love that, man. I'm a huge proponent of backing tracks. I love using them.
Yeah, just to throw you out of your comfort zone, I think it is good to just put on something.
Totally, man.
Yeah. Cover bands. Have you done much in the way of playing in cover bands over the years?
I did when I was at music school, like because people were like, "Oh, you should get out there and play covers. It's a good way to meet other musos and that kind of thing." So this is going back a long time. So I did and played around and just did the Sydney, trawl. But I got pretty sick of carrying my Hot Rod Deluxe up some staircase at 2 a.m. and eventually joined bands and just started doing bands after that.
Cool. And you said music school. Which music school was that?
The Australian Institute of Music.
Okay.
Which is here in Sydney. It's in the middle of the city, pretty much.
Nice one. And what kind of lessons did you learn from that carried on to the real world?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I took away from it was that it was at a really crucial point in my life where I was either going to pursue music full time or not, which is when, you're in your late teens, coming into your 20s. And at that point, the world is kind of your oyster and you want to pick a direction. And I discovered music when I was in a regular high school, and playing became kind of my savior, if you will. It's like the only thing that I became interested in, and I kind of just stopped going to school, and I would just not go and stay at home and play guitar all day. And my mum recognized this and immediately took me out of there and put me in the Institute of Music. And it was at that time where I was like surrounded by people who felt just like me. Whereas when I was in regular high school, people were interested in partying or more conventional life choices, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so suddenly I was like just in a world where what I wanted to do was really normalized, and to just fiercely attack music all the way and go at it as a career was just really normal, both from all the students and all the teachers and everything. So I think the biggest thing I took away from that was that it like really legitimized my love for it. By being in the right environment. I think maybe a lot of people may have pursued music as a full-time thing if they had a setting like that when they were starting out. So it almost feels like the world is designed to push you away from making decisions like that when you're younger. And so for me, it just gave me that nice like red carpet of this is the right thing to do kind of thing.
Nice. Because, the conventional school, I can actually remember seeing my guidance counselor in year 12, and they're talking about your career paths and stuff, and what do you want to do? I want to play guitar. Well, no, what do you want to do for a real job?
Exactly.
They just didn't get that can be a legit job if you go about it the right way, and it's not just I want to be, I didn't go in there saying I want to be in a famous band, with hits and stuff, because realistically that's a very short little burst of fame that might come your way, and fame doesn't necessarily mean money, and just things like teaching. You said you've got like 20 students or something right now, is that you said? Like that, man, how much better is that than lugging bricks or or dealing with customers that are angry at you all day in, day out? You're sitting there doing something you love.
It is a blessing. It's not lost on me that I wake up and walk to a room in my house every day. That's certainly nice. And I had a full-time job straight out of high school up until only about 7 years ago, or 6 years ago was when I quit my last job and started doing music and everything else full-time. So it's not lost on me how great it is. And I love it. It's really nice. But that said, like, if it ever ended and I had to go back and get some normal job, like, as long as it was just something I enjoyed doing, I don't think it would matter. But I haven't found anything else in life that I enjoy more than playing guitar and being involved in music. And there's an element of just following the breadcrumbs as well. Like, I had no intention of being, like, a respected musician. I never thought I would end up in that place. It's just that I'm just following those breadcrumbs along. It seems to be working, and it's amazing that anyone likes the music that I make, because I really make it just for me, to push myself and see what I can do. So it's just really nice to follow the breadcrumbs and see where it goes, really.
Totally. There's so many different avenues. I didn't think I'd be making demos on YouTube and the like when I was a kid. Well, there was no YouTube.
Totally.
So, these different avenues open up. Just got to think differently and see what else is out there. James, I'm going to put the call out there for people who are watching. If they want to throw any questions at us, I'll start scanning through all the questions and the like now, because it takes a little while to get through some of those. But in the meantime, I want to know about strings and picks for you, like string gauges, picks, etc. What's your choice? What's your flavor?
So I have used D'Addario 9 to 46 strings since day dot, and I've tried different brands and been offered, deals with other brands and this and that. but I'm kind of a creature of habit when it comes to gear, actually. I tend not to fluctuate around things. To me, 9 to 40, I play in standard tuning always. So to me, I just find that just feels really balanced in standard tuning.
Okay.
I have, not too much resistance on the young person strings, and the wound strings feel nice and, tight and good. So I've used 9 to 46 D'Addario forever. And I was a Jazz 3 guy pretty much forever as well.
Oh, really?
Until, I want to say maybe 5 years ago. I think it was maybe at the Surf Factory party I met this guy, Pete, who owns this company, Swiss Picks. Mm-hmm. And or I met him at NAMM or something. I can't quite remember where we met. But he was like, I know you use the Jazz 3, and I'm a big fan of your stuff, and I make my own take on that, and I want you to try it. And so he gave me a bunch of them, and this is it. So I'm still using this.
Cool.
I don't think these ones are a production model. These ones are just made specifically for me. These slightly thicker black Swisses. I just cannot tell you how good these things are. They have the brightest, most percussive sound on the string. And because they're kind of cast in a certain way, they don't have that join through the middle, so they don't chirp on the string or anything, which in a recording setting always really annoyed me, hearing that little like cheep cheep across the strings.
Yeah.
It doesn't do any of that. It's great. So I've been using this pick for about 5 years. And at first I was like, oh, this thing is so stupid looking. But it has a great application. Like when you squeeze down on it, the holes in it create like a suction. So it sticks, like you grip it really well.
Cool.
So yeah, I've been using these Swiss picks. What is this? So I don't say the wrong thing. Oh yeah, the 1.80 millimeter.
Okay. So you don't like any flex in the pick whatsoever?
No.
Yeah.
No flex. I don't tend to play like much strummy stuff. So obviously using this to strum would not be that great. You want a bit of give across the strum, but most of my music is not that. So this serves really well for that nice hard dynamic.
It's funny that I've come to realize that if you want to play the fast, precise stuff, you can't have any flex in the pick. And I haven't spoken to anybody that plays fast, precise picking that has a flexible pick at all. Actually, I've got the lightest of them all I've got Sammy Bowler's pick right here. He was kind enough to send me a whole packet of his. Let me just change the screen so I can see it up here. Let's see if that'll focus. And that's a Dunlop, a really thin one, but there's still no flex about that whatsoever.
Right.
And when I do use something, it was Andy James. I met Andy James at NAMM. And it was really, really funny. I was walking along and I was sort of standing there and there's a bloke standing beside me. I just looked at him and went, "Oh, Andy James, how you going, man?" I'm good. And I said,
the classic NAMM bump into.
Yeah. And I said to him, "Man, your picking is so damn precise and
It really is.
amazing." And he sort of leaned forward and went, "I've got a secret." And he put his hand in his pocket and he was just about to release his new signature picks. And he handed me one. And I took that home and I thought, wow, that's really heavy. And I used that nonstop, wore all the print and everything off it. I've still got it around here somewhere. And as soon as I went back to the picks I was using previous to that had a slight bit of flex, it felt like, and I say this all the time, it was like trying to write with a rubber pen. And it was just...
I mean, that's how I feel about it too. Like, people say, how can you play with a pick that has no flex? And to me, like in my brain, just holding the pick lighter gives it flex. So you almost don't need a pick with flex. Like if I'm strumming, I just hold the pick lightly and it moves in my hand across the strings. But if you squeeze down on it tight, then it gives you that really hard dynamic. So yeah, I mean, I've been using these for so long now that if I have to play with anything else, like if someone just hands me like a floppy pick, I just like cannot play guitar anymore. It's just not good.
I totally get it. I got given a whole bunch of these chicken picks.
Oh yeah, I know guys who use those. I've heard good stuff.
That's it. Right, the sun's just starting to creep across here, but they're a strange pick. The sunlight's hitting me right now. I'm
It was.
melting. I'm melting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're a
Yeah.
big triangle.
Yeah, they look cool.
And I really like these because they don't wear out. I've tried all the Dunlop flow and all that kind of thing, and they just lose the shape way too quick. I lose the point on it, and even though I do love them, so yeah, whatever material the Chicken Picks guys are using on those is really cool, and I need to get some more.
Yeah, I've never been really like a geary guy. Like when someone says, "Do you want to try this?" It gives me anxiety.
Oh, really?
Like, I'm not like I just know what I like, and I'm very, very much so of the school of thought that it takes a long time to really know a piece of gear, like, and to get the best out of it, you need to adapt your playing to it and to really understand its strengths and weaknesses. Like it takes me years to like a guitar, of any guitar, like even if it's a brand new Surf, for example. Like, of course, it's amazing straight out of the box, but it takes a long time for me to know what it's good at, what its strengths are, like what I should and shouldn't use it for. And I apply that to more pieces of gear. So I tend to have gear, if I'm using it, I've probably had it for a really long time, and I'm not really interested in like beginning that whole long process with another piece of gear just willy-nilly. And the same thing is like with the picks, like, or strings and that kind of thing. I feel like if I was to bring new things into the fold, I'm not really interested in just trying it out for a day and being like, yeah, because I mean, I can't really make a call off using it for a day,
Yeah, sure. Did you ever consider going lighter in your strings when you started having issues with the tendonitis and stuff?
I didn't, because I didn't want to like accept that I had been defeated in any way. Like, I just wanted to get back to where I felt comfortable. And so I didn't consider doing lighter gauges or anything like that. I just wanted to be able to, like, if I was playing the same setup that I used to and it didn't feel bad, then I would know that I was on the right path.
Cool.
And apart from that initial period where I was having lots of weakness in my hand, I could still play kind of fine throughout that whole period, but I just did it with a lot of pain,
Right. Yeah.
And that was like distracting to me. And it was just very frustrating because I just, when you get lost in the playing, it's a great feeling, and you can't have any distractions when you're playing complex music. And I'm the kind of guy where I'm usually so well physically practiced, like for a tour or whatever it is, that I don't usually make playing mistakes. I tend to make like concentration errors. So I'll like, be in the middle of some solo on stage and be like, oh, where did I put my car keys? And then I make a mistake, like, so I'm always trying to strengthen that concentration game while I'm playing. And so the sensations in my arms were distractions.
Yeah.
Even though I could play fine, I was very hyper aware of how my arms were feeling, and that was a distraction. And so I just wanted to get to that point where I wasn't feeling that. And I just felt like if I'd bumped the string gauge down and it felt fine, then that wouldn't be a good gauge of, was I back to my full health kind of thing.
Yeah, right. I actually went to eights. A friend of mine gave me a set of eights, and I thought they were going to suck. They were cool, man. They were
Probably
so cool.
Glorious, yeah.
It was like, oh man, I'm not limited by physical strength. I can play anything I can think of. I just need to learn some more things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not limited by technique and pain and strength anymore. I'm limited by my imagination and knowledge. So that was a bit of an eye opener.
Yeah.
Let's go through the questions here. Besides being amazing at guitar and somehow recovering from your injury, what are you most grateful for? And why are you an underground guitar god? From Become the Night. It's probably a friend of yours.
Oh, yes. Yes. We met this year at NAMM, actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Michael Kupras, I want to say, if I remember. Forgive me if that's wrong. Anyway.
So what are you most grateful for?
I was going to say, what was the question? Alzheimer's. I would say that, look, right now I'm most grateful to be in the position in life I'm in where things are quite peaceful, in the fact that, I'm kind of free and in a position to even work on the music that I'm doing and kind of live this little dream that I had for a long time where I wanted to make records and tour them, and none of that stuff is possible unless there's people there who enjoy what you do. So I'm just, really grateful that, I guess thanks to technology, and I'm a big proponent of being independent, and, back in the day, there would be no hope for anyone to hear music like what I do. But now, because of the internet and Bandcamp culture and all that stuff and Spotify, I think guys like me can have pretty fruitful little careers, if you will. So I'm just really grateful to be doing that and doing this, and just having fun, and not having to go to a day job anymore.
Yeah.
That's good.
Aussie fucking Pete wants to know, when will we see you on the road touring again?
That's a good question, and I would like to know that too. My agent is currently trying to put together a tour, with tentative dates already aside, and lots of things have to come together for that to happen, I think, because things are really uncertain. Even just keeping an eye on Australia, like different parts of Australia are kind of all up and down. So it's really hard to know. Obviously, anyone who follows what I do know that I have a record kind of imminently coming out. Of course, I'll be hitting touring big time. My band are already learning all the material now, working at it. All the wheels are in motion for that to happen. But I feel like I'm just in the same boat as anyone else. Like, until there's some clarity on what's actually possible, it's really hard to know, or it's difficult to start booking in things with this kind of mentality, because tours are on a knife edge enough as they are without wondering if, and guys like me at my level can't sustain, big rescheduling costs and stuff like that. So the answer is, as soon as possible, hopefully, as soon as things start to come back to normal a bit, there'll be announcements on the record and touring.
Cool. Got another one from Aussie fucking Pete. He says, what has been your favorite EP to produce, and what challenged you creatively?
If we're talking about mine, then I think I had a lot of fun making the Usurper EP, which was the second thing I released was my first EP, actually, but the second kind of solo thing I put out. And that was a lot of fun, just because this will tie right back to the beginning of this interview when I said that it was that Angus Young Donington DVD that was like, oh shit, that's what I want to do with my life. Because of that, I always had a soft spot for the SG as a guitar. And I always was like, look, one day I'm going to release something where I played an SG on it, And so I went out and I found like a nice 61 reissue SG, and I got it and I played it, and I was like, God, this is such a stupid feeling guitar. And I just didn't agree with it at all. But I made the entire EP and recorded it with that SG. And so for me, that was a bit of a kind of, hat tip to Angus, and just playing that guitar, and it just never stayed in tune, and it was so weird. And so that was really fun, and it was just a challenge because, I'm very big on the bar, and my kind of playing style doesn't lend itself to like that particular kind of guitar very well. So that was just a fun experiment making that one.
It's funny, as soon as you said SG, I kind of wrote down SG because I was going to bring up, I just can't play them, man. Everything feels too far that way. It's
it doesn't work. I get that.
It's over here, and I've never met Angus Young, but he must be tiny because it looks huge on him, and everything is just too small for me on an SG.
I agree.
Yeah, just can't get it to work.
It's weird. It pushes your hand so far this way, doesn't it? Because the bridge is like halfway into the guitar, so you're like, and to stand with it is just awful. When we did the tour off the back of that EP, I took that guitar out for some shows, and yeah, just silly, but fun, because that guitar to me is like, that was the guitar visually that started it all.
Cool. There's one more question there. So if folks do have any more questions, quickly throw them in there before I wrap things up with James. But another one here from Nick. What does he find to be the best method to market his solo work, build a solid following? So he being you. What do you find to be the best method to market your solo work and build a solid following?
My approach has always been that I'm not the biggest, like, I'm not into that whole self-promotion, building up numbers, or like playing the game, trying to figure out the algorithm thing. I've really never been about that. And I think my numbers reflect that. Like, I don't have big Instagram numbers or Facebook numbers or anything like that. So I remember when I first started getting noticed in the kind of instrumental guitar scene that's now big and healthy. I always just thought that if I could get the companies that I work with to share my material and help me in that regard, then I really wouldn't have to do that work. Like, because, I could post something to my, 5,000 followers or something, but let's just say if, like, all of the companies I'm endorsed by also share that thing, then my thing goes out to 1 million people collectively. So that's kind of been an approach of mine, and a particular area where I think the relationship is really important, and has been really helpful to me. And obviously I credit being on the map at all to a couple of companies taking risks on me back in the day and believing in me, and look, beyond that, just the organic approach. I really just focus on the music and try to make the music as sincerely and as best as I can, and let it do the talking. And I think to an extent, like in the background, in the underground, it has, and at face value, I haven't had to go and constantly, keep up the image of success on the internet or anything like that, because that to me is just, I'm not really interested in doing that.
Cool. So you're absolutely right about companies sharing your stuff. Man, I share stuff on my Facebook page. I barely get any likes or shares or anything. But if a company picks up on a demo that I've done and shares it, you'll see the big jump in subscribers. You might get 50 in a day or something. You go, whoa, holy hell, that was cool, So yeah, that is a much bigger reach, isn't it, than trying to do it yourself?
Totally, man. And look, if people want to focus on having big numbers and all that stuff, that's totally fine. But I know so many guys with like colossal numbers that none of that has really translated into real life tangible stuff, which is what I think really matters. Like, for example, playing with peers that you respect, or being billed on good tours, or record sales and stuff like that. Those things are important. And I think that the climate today just shows that there's really no rules. You don't have to really do anything. You just have to kind of forge your own path and stick to it, and it'll either work for you in your niche. And I have such a tiny niche. Like, my thing is so particular and so small, but I'm effective in that little crack that I've gone into, and I'm not trying to have this big wide net approach to things. And I think that's important, that you don't have to have that big wide net approach to things. You just have to find your niche and communicate to those that are kind of in that niche with you as well, I think.
It's funny you mentioned the numbers, and just I deal a lot with manufacturers, and some are very focused on the numbers. You approach them, hey, I'd like to do a demo on this particular piece of gear. How many subscribers have you got? Is the first thing someone will say.
Right.
Then there's others that will say, oh, send us a link to some of your stuff, and they'll have a look, and they don't care that you don't have that bigger numbers. They'll come back with, hey, man, your quality is really good. Yeah, sure, we'd love to work with you. So it is one of those things that people can, some get wrapped up in the numbers, others can actually see quality for what it's worth.
Definitely. I mean, that's a better way of saying what I was trying to say, is that I think people know quality when they see it. Obviously, it's down to personal preference and taste, and sometimes the stars just align in that way where the person that you want to be affiliated with, someone in that camp, respects what you do, and so the numbers don't really mean anything, you know.
Just going to take one last question here from Rob Jarrett. Any recommendations on some prog bands some of us may not know?
Well, I mean, it just depends if we're talking new school or old school. I mean, look, there's all the wave of current new guys, like I mentioned before, that are awesome and releasing amazing music, like, you know, David Maximicic and Pliny and Nick Johnson and you know, a bunch of guys in that camp are making amazing music. But like all the old stuff, like Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and all the classic rock stuff. I mean, I listen to a lot of like funk and jazz these days as well. People should check out Christian Scott, this trumpet player that has shaped my kind of melodic sensibility a lot over the last 5 years or so. So yeah, those would be some to check out.
Cool. My battery has just run out on my camera. Oh, look at that. I'm frozen right there. I can fix that. Give me 1 second. Change it to that one, and then I hit that little button and I'm back, but using my MacBook. Oh, I'm a strange pinky color now, but that's okay. That's what you've been looking at the whole time. I haven't been able to get a battery, a power adapter. With everybody at home and everyone's jumped on the streaming bandwagon, you can't get certain accessories for cameras right now because everyone's wanting them, and I haven't been able to get a power adapter for my camera. So okay. I do run out of battery, and sometimes I'll let the person know and do a quick little, if I know we're going to be going for like 3 hours or something, and quickly try and change it all. But that one just got me before I had time to wrap it up. James, I want to thank you so much, man, for your time. As I said, the lesson that I did take with you, I got so much out of that in terms of how to practice and warm up in the mornings, and it built a lot of flow to my playing. How can people get a hold of you if they want to take lessons with you?
Probably the easiest way is just reach out to me on any one of my social media channels, like Facebook or Instagram. You can just contact me there. Otherwise, via email as well, which is my full name, jamesnorbertivanyi@gmail.com. And yeah, just touch base and we can start the conversation. It's no problem.
Cool. And whereabouts can people get your music if they're interested in checking out your music?
The best way to support me is on Bandcamp. So they can purchase my music directly from Bandcamp, which is a wonderful service, music website for artists, independent artists, particularly like myself. Otherwise, man, stream away on Spotify, you know, all the usual Google Play things as well. I'm on all of those things. Cool.
So, folks, I want to again thank James for coming along. Please like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. I have been bringing quite a few cool people on this Chit Chats with GitCat series. It's been a lot of fun. I don't think people know about me. It's really funny, like considering the caliber of guests that I've had on the last few weeks. It's just a matter of time. So if you are watching this and you are enjoying what I do, check out the playlist for some cool guests. Please share, like, subscribe for both mine and James's socials. And folks, as usual, I got the magic button. I'm going to hit the magic button. The magic button's right here, and it goes something like this. Bye.